It has often been said that time in the markets beats timing the markets every time it's tried. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. Nothing on this podcast should be construed as financial advice. All views expressed on this podcast are solely the opinions of the host and/or any guests that we might have from time to time. Nothing on this podcast should be construed as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or to follow a particular investing strategy. Hello, you sexy sat stackers. Welcome to the latest episode of the Bitcoin Bulletin Podcast. Today is Wednesday, August 18th, and that means it is DCA Wednesday. Today will be the fourth stack on this journey that we started together just under a month ago on July 28th. As you know, if you've been listening, I decided to test out this theory of dollar cost averaging by stacking $20 every Wednesday until we either get stinking rich, the method completely fails, or you just get bored and stop listening. Again, a quick disclaimer, this podcast is for information purposes only. This is not financial advice, and we are just following along as I explore this method of dollar cost averaging and give you my commentary on my experiences along the way. But before we get into that, let's look at the stats. We are currently at a block height of 689,414. And Bitcoin is currently approximately $45,503. And that's down a little bit from its peak just above 48,000 about 4 days ago on Saturday at, depending on which exchange you follow, it breached 48,000 just briefly, and we've seen a little bit of a pullback since then, depending on who you listen to, either because of fears of slowing consumer spending, or most recently the unfolding debacle in Afghanistan. If you follow Matt and Marty on their podcast, The Rabbit Hole Recap, you will know that there was a little bit of a debate between them, with Marty saying that his sources were telling him that the miners that had been shut down in China had been moving to Texas and other places around the world and would be coming back online sooner rather than later. And Matt Odell was hedging a little bit, rational paranoia as always, saying that perhaps this is a fake out by the Chinese government and that maybe it's all part of a plan to 51% attack the Bitcoin network. On the last episode of RHR, Matt Odell said, I guess that theory's probably out the window because we have seen hash rate come back on the network, and we've seen it come back on powerfully. So we just had an upward difficulty adjustment of 7.3%, and depending on where you get your information, we're forecast to have another difficulty increase in approximately 1 week. And anywhere between 6 and 12%, an additional 6 or 12% increase in difficulty adjustment. So that mining hash rate, or new mining hash rate, is definitely coming online, and doing so sooner rather than later, as some anticipated. It might have taken a year or more for that hash rate to return, and clearly it's done so a lot faster. All right, so what is dollar cost averaging? Depending where you get your financial advice, and hopefully it's not from some random stranger on the internet or a podcast like mine, dollar cost averaging is an investment strategy where you invest your money in equal portions at regular intervals regardless of price. So for example, we chose $20, which isn't a whole lot of money for a lot of people, but it's an amount that pretty much most people should be able to come up with, even if it means that you don't go to Starbucks today, or maybe you don't eat out for lunch this afternoon. $20 is a lot of money in some parts of the world, but for most people listening to this podcast, $20 should be a fairly easy amount to come up with every Wednesday. And so we've been investing every Wednesday, regardless of price, since July 28th. And as I previously stated, this will be stack number 4. Our first stack on July 28th, we stacked $20 at an average price of $39,716.40. Then on August 4th, we stacked again at an average price of $38,900. So that was down almost $1,000. And then our third stack was on August 11th, and Bitcoin had gone up all the way to $46,606. And of course, it continued up all the way to 48, as I previously mentioned, before pulling back to where we find it right now at about $45,457.77. If you've been listening, you know that I've been stacking using the Cash App, predominantly because it's easy and the fees are relatively modest at about 2.5%. You can definitely invest with lower fees on some platforms, but it's nowhere near as expensive as others. However, now that the Bitcoin button is live on the Strike app, we will probably give that a test, try that out in the next couple of episodes. But for now, we're going to stick with the Cash App because that's what we've been doing and because it's relatively easy. With our 3 stacks, we've paid a 45-cent fee each stack, but nonetheless, we've accumulated a total of 141,428 Satoshis, and that is at an average cost of $42,424, including those 3 45-cent fees. And with Bitcoin currently hovering around $45,107, that makes our stack value worth $63.79, which is obviously a gain from the total of $60 that we've invested thus far. Okay, so let's get right to it. For today's stack, I'm going to open up the handy dandy Cash App again. And I don't have any money on the Cash App at the moment, so I'm going to add cash, and I'm going to add just the $20 we're going to invest today. And I've added $20. And now I'm going over to the Bitcoin tab, clicking on buy. Once again, for some reason, it likes the numbers 10, 25, 50, 75, and 100. So I'm going to click the little dots and enter a custom purchase of $20. They do give you the option to automate that as a recurring buy, but we're going to just do the one-time order because, again, I, as you probably noticed from listening, like to obsess on prices. I've mentioned the price, 3 or 4 times already just in the few minutes we've been talking. So it's asking me to confirm my purchase of $20. It says that we're going to be buying at $45,076.20. Again, there's that 45-cent fee, which is about 2.5%. So we're actually going to buy $19.55 worth of Bitcoin, which will get us 43,371 additional Satoshis, to which I'm clicking confirm. And boom, we purchased another 43,371 sats. And that brings us to a grand total of 184,799 Satoshis, valued currently at $83.30, which is $3.30 more than we've paid. So dollar cost averaging is a long-term strategy, and it's certainly going to go both up and down as we continue playing this game over the coming months and years, hopefully. But at the moment, it's working its magic exactly as intended. So far, so good. And once again, obviously, this is not financial advice. But I do hope you find this helpful, following me along as I explore the concept of dollar cost averaging and see where it takes us. Hey, if you find this content useful or entertaining, or if you're just feeling extraordinarily generous, there are a number of ways you can help support me in this podcast. The most obvious one is if you don't already have Cash App, there is a referral code in the show notes. And if you click on that link and set up a new Cash App account, follow their terms and conditions, you'll get $5 just for trying them out, and we'll get $5 as well. I've written several books, but the one you might know that's most relevant to this podcast is Understanding Bitcoin for Noobs, and that's available on both Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Obviously, purchasing either of my books would help support the podcast as well. And you can also support the podcast directly through the anchor.fm website, and they include a support link automatically in the show notes. And last but not least, we also include a Bish32 Bitcoin address in the show notes if you feel like helping us out by contributing Bitcoin. Any of those would be greatly accepted. Any of those would be greatly appreciated. All will be accepted. And it'll help us continue our journey. And as usual, if there are any suggestions, things you would like me to talk about, things you would not like me to talk about, or if you just want to drop a line and say hi, you can contact us by email at bitcoinbulletin@protonmail.com. We do maintain the website bitcoinbulletinpodcast.com that provides additional links and ways that you can follow us or listen to us. And you can follow me on Twitter at BTC Bulletin Pod. That's at BTC Bulletin Pod. And in case you don't have that Cash App referral code and like to enter fancy numbers, you can enter that code manually as PZBNXLF. That's Papa Zebra Bravo November X-Ray Lincoln Lima Foxtrot. Excuse the tiny little faux pas there. Throwback from the days when I had to blend two different phonetic alphabets. And obviously I'm not important enough to merit my own custom referral code, at least not yet. And that is going to do it for this DCA Wednesday edition of the Bitcoin Bulletin Podcast. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Your support is greatly appreciated. And until next time, keep on stacking those sats, you sexy sat stackers.